Theater. When you hear the word theater, what do you think of? The place you go to watch a movie? Some place your grandparents like to go to? It could even be the place you go to watch a concert of some kind. Or, if you are theatrically inclined, unlike myself, you may think of a Broadway production. These are all good connections, but have you ever been drawn to the idea of ancient Greek theater? Probably not, but just like everything in today's society, theater had to start somewhere, and that somewhere is ancient Greece. Let's take a trip back to Athens. In the 6th century BCE, here lies the start of ancient Greek theater. Theater was not exactly what we think of today. It was not a formal event where people gathered to watch a performance. It did not start as a bunch of actors who performed to entertain its audience. In ancient Greece, theater was religious and a way to deliver information. It all started with festivals to honor their gods. These festivals were known to be full of drinkers. It is believed that the alcohol resulted in the worshippers losing control of their emotions, and therefore taking on the role of someone else. Sound familiar? This is the job of an actor: to confine, to take on the role of another character, to drop one's beliefs and self to fill the body of another. First, theater focused on dramas of tragedy, then later included the dramas of comedy, both full of their own histories. It only makes sense to go in chronological order, so let's start with the origins of tragedy. You may ask, where did tragedy come from? And I wish I could give you a simple answer for that question, but nothing in theater is simple. Some believe it dated back to epic poetry, a tale that focuses heavily on a hero and the cultural backgrounds of the poet. Others, however, believe tragedy arose from rituals, worshipping the gods. More specifically, the worshipping of one god, Dionysius, god of wine, fertility, and theater. These rituals were called trigodia, a ritual sacrifice of goats, and those sacrificing the goats wore masks, similar to what we may see in theater today. These rituals and ceremonies of worship opened the door to theatrical tragedy. Now, I am asking the men to follow me back in time to the festival of Dionysius, or others refer it to as the city of Dionysia in Athens. I only want the men on this journey because you guys are the only ones that were allowed at this performance. Now, before we step into the theatron, or the open theater on the bare hillside of Athens, let me tell you a bit more about what this is. The festival of Dionysius is the start of theatrical tragedy. Every year in the spring, there is a 4-day competition between 4 authors. Each author writes 3 tragedies and 1 satyr. For those of you who don't know, a satyr features an actor who is half man, half animal. Each author is then assigned a day to perform. At the conclusion of the 4 days, the panel of judges chooses a winner. Sounds simple enough, huh? No. Again, nothing is simple in theater. There are rules. Since we are back to the start of tragedy, there's only 1 speaking actor allowed. So how do you perform a play with 1 actor? Well, yes, there is 1 actor, but he takes on the role of many different people. The actor is to go off the stage to a skene, a small tent where he would change to then take on the role of another character. That's not it. Actors were also not allowed to perform violence, and death was not to be seen, but only heard off the stage. Seems hard, right? But this is where we learned how important character voices and gestures are in distinguishing characters. In today's world, the production of a big theater performance cost nearly thousands, if not millions of dollars. So who paid for all of it back then? The choragoys. The choragoys are rich men appointed to pay for the production of one of these authors. Who picked the choragoys, you may ask? That would be the archons. The archons are men who run the show, and they decide who's performing at each one of these festivals. Who pays the poet or the actors? The state. The state valued the theater and therefore paid the actors and the poet. So, back to the performance. These authors are given a day to perform their play, and then one is picked as the winner. The winner is not only awarded with the honor and prestige, but also given a bronze tripod cauldron, just like the one you see here. Okay, so now that you know a little bit about the festival that we're walking into, free of entry of course, let's look at some of the biggest known tragedy authors. To start, we have Aeschylus. In 499 BC, Aeschylus participated in the festival of Dionysius, later moved on to win in 484 BC. Why was he so famous, you ask? I know I said only one actor was allowed, but that was only in the beginning. Aeschylus was known for adding a second actor in addition to using more dialogue than seen before. This allowed for conversation and in-depth plot construction. If you think that's a lot, he is also known for his scenery and costumes, each adding so much more to the production. His work specifically focused on public themes. For example, a well-known piece, Orestia, focused on the contrast between revenge and justice. This play was written during a time of war, where right and wrong were contemplated in a sense that life is unfair. There are a few other plays that still live to be famous today, but I want to make sure I cover the other important people of theatrical tragedy. Now, on to Sophocles, winner of the 468 BC Festival of Dionysius. He is remembered as the guy who added a third actor, again allowing more dialogue and a more intricate plot. He is also remembered for his scene painting, making the entire play seem more real. The Britannica describes the character Sophocles created to lack wisdom and present truth in collision with ignorance, delusion, and folly. Each play is described as being filled with sympathy and vividness. I am sure you all already know, but his most important play was Oedipus the King. This play focuses on persistence. Oedipus is pushed to find the truth and to not get lost in his own pride. Overall, just remember, Sophocles opened a new door for theater. The addition of another actor allowed for the decrease in chorus and the focus on both the presentation of the plot and the extensive development of each character. And now, for our last major influence on theatrical tragedy, we have Euripides, winner of the 454 BC Festival of Dionysius. He was a winner, of course, but nothing compared to his other two competitors. I'm sure you think I'm going to tell you Euripides was famous for adding a fourth actor, because that seems to be the pattern. But you are wrong. Euripides was actually famous for his unconventional view of Greek mythology. He was known for creating his plays based on the frailties or weaknesses of mythological characters. In other words, Euripides was remembered greatly for using ordinary people as his characters, instead of gods and the people that were looked so heavily upon. By creating a plot based on your ordinary man or woman, you allow for the audience to make deeper connections. They can relate to the feelings and themes of the play. I could go on and on about each of these theater gods, but I just want to scratch the surface by mentioning the most important three and the greatness each one brought to the advancements of theater. So now that you understand the history of theatrical tragedy, let's dive into the origins of comedy. Leaving the time of tragedy, fast forward with me to 6th century BC where comedy began. Similar to Greek tragedy, the exact origin is debated. Some believe comedy originated through pottery, clay that was shaped into men who were half animal and half person, or decorations and costumes that were heavily exaggerated. Others say comedy originated from a poem with Archilochus and Hipponax. The poem contains sexual humor, and those who disagree with those two options being the origin of comedy tend to believe the origin lies within phallic song that were sang during the Dionysia festivals. Phallic relates to an erect penis. I know that might be TMI, but it is important to understand the origins of theatrical comedy. Talking about phallic songs may seem weird, but a lot of comedy, even in today's society, revolves around sexual humor, so it makes sense, I guess. Following a similar structure to tragedy plays, comedy plays were structured into the parados, argon, parabaesis, and exodos. The parados consisted of the chorus, which was responsible for music and dancing. Fun fact, plays were commonly written after the chorus's costumes, for example, the Wasps. The second part of the play was the agon, which was a debate between the two characters. Thirdly, there's the parabaesis. Here, the chorus speaks to the audience. And if you're in my Drama 101 class, I'd relate this to our first module where we discussed the pros and cons of contemporary theater etiquette. A conversation between the chorus or actors in the play with the audience. The play then ends with the exodos. Here, the chorus brought the play to an end with a song and dance routine. Some may ask, is there a competition for comedy plays too? Well, that's a great question, and the answer is yes. However, many authors of this competition did not write plays that survived to present day. Aristophanes, however, created pieces of playwright that impressed the audience, still to this day. Aristophanes' time was from 425 BC to 390 BC. He spent his time creating comedies that made fun of politicians, philosophers, artists, and even people of his audience. It is interesting to hear about what people believed to be funny in the past, because we see the same type of humor in today's world. I'm sure everyone has seen memes of Donald Trump, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone made a comical play about our president. Humor has remained quite similar for the years. Did you know Aristophanes was actually nicknamed the father of comedy? Pretty cool, right? Anyway, his pieces are known to be categorized as old comedy. Old comedy, also known as political comedy, makes a joke about the polis, a city, state, or community in ancient Greece, while new comedy focuses heavily on the family matters and other love relationships. Well, thanks to Aristophanes, we are now able to enjoy a movie in the genre of comedy. So now ask yourself the same question: what is theater? Prior to taking this course, I only saw theater as being a formal performance that was shown at Broadway or any other theaters around the world. Not once did I think of ancient Greek theater. However, after taking this course, I have gained a stronger appreciation for theater and its origins. It is really interesting to see how theater became the theater we think of today, how Sophocles and other authors paved the way for theater. Yeah, over time, things have changed, but the overarching basics of theater remain the same. There are tragedies and comedies. There are actors who dress and pretend to be someone else. There are competitions and awards. There is an audience. There is music. There are dancers. There is a plot. And most importantly, there is a theater, whether it be a place or something you go see. Theater has lived through decades of change, and thanks to our fellow ancient Greeks, we are able to enjoy theatrical pieces.